Record. All right, and so once you got your asset downloaded, you can open your content drawer in the bottom left by clicking this. Or you can press Control plus or Control space bar to open it up. And then on the left side of the project, over here, you'll see mega scans, and under 3D assets should be your asset that you downloaded. And then you just click and drag, and then it'll pop up into the level. Yeah. So I'm just gonna quickly save it. I think something bugged, but I'm gonna reopen it. So once you get your asset in here in Quixel Bridge, you can scale it to make it larger. And if you guys want to, you guys can click this lock button, and then it'll scale the proportions. So since it's at 1, now I can scale it to 10 and make this larger in size. And when you press W on the keyboard, you have these arrows that pop up on the asset that you click on, and you can move it like this. You can also press E on the keyboard, and you can rotate any asset you want. And finally, if you press R on the keyboard, you can scale it in a specific direction. Or if you highlight your mouse right in the middle here, you can scale it even larger or smaller depending on the scene you guys are trying to make. So go ahead and practice pressing W to move your object. You can press E to rotate your object, or you can press R to scale your object to be larger or smaller in size. We're focusing more on animations, not really about the 3D games. Which are interesting. Yeah. If you guys want to duplicate your object, you can hold down the Alt button on the keyboard, and when you click your object, you gotta make sure you're in the move mode by pressing W. So if you hold down Alt, we can duplicate. And I'm just getting the scene ready for animation.
So look at Daydream. For 3D animations, when you create a scene, well, ultimately, he's gonna show how to create the landscape, but it's always better to cover with the landscape with this megascan object by scaling, locating. That looks a lot more realistic, just like what he's doing right now. It's just gonna use landscape as a landscape material. It's not gonna look that realistic. Since our purpose is creating realistic 3D animations, that is a good way actually to create a scene. Even though it's one object, he can copy and paste and change a little bit, it looks widely different.
So I'm almost done getting the scene to where I want. And so go ahead and take a few minutes to make your 3D environment look interesting. And then in about 5 minutes, I'm gonna cover how to make the camera and how to animate a path for the camera.
Perfect. Let's pause the recording. Before and camera and landscape and a tree, you might need to download tree.
Yeah.
And all these.
All right, so getting into the landscape, but before I get into that, what I want to do is use my little starting plate here. And I'm gonna open up my content drawer and I downloaded a material. It's under the surfaces, under Megascans, and then I downloaded a grass. So with materials and 3D surfaces, you simply click and drag. And when we look at this grass, the resolution looks very low. And in order to fix that, you click the surface. And then over here, we have something called the details panel right here. And so in the details panel, we're just going to scroll and find the material, which is right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a double click on this. And then all you have to worry about is right here where it says tiling. And so I click this, open this little box right here, and I'm gonna multiply this by 5 and 5. And all we gotta do is click save. And we're done. So again, that's just double clicking the material, opening up tiling here, and make the X and Y numbers bigger. In this case, I can choose 5, or I can even choose 10. And then click save. And then we're done. And now when we look at the grass, it's a lot sharper. And from the camera's perspective, it looks like a landscape. But what we're gonna do is create a real landscape. And in order to do that, what we do is in the top left, up here under selection mode, we're gonna click that. And then we're gonna choose landscape.
And follow the important part, pause what you're doing now and follow the landscape. Everyone, pause what you're doing now and follow show the landscape again one more time.
All right, so initially, when you're in the engine, it looks like this. And that's because we are in the selection mode. The selection mode is useful when you want to click any asset in your level to move, rotate, or scale. But what we want to do is create a large landscape. So we click the selection mode, and then we click landscape. And now when we zoom out, all of this green right here is going to be the landscape. And for this purpose, I think this looks perfectly fine. And so the next thing is before you do anything else, is you have this gizmo here. And this determines the height of the landscape. In my case, I have this grass down here. And so I want this green grid, I want it to be below all of the important stuff. And finally, the last step is we want to apply a material on our landscape here. So this should pop up on the left of your screen. And so in this case, for me, I'm gonna click content drawer on the bottom left. And I'm gonna navigate to a surface. So any surface you want. In my case, I'm just gonna choose grass. If you guys don't have a grass surface, you can always go to your starter content, go under materials. And click the ground moss. So you click and drag this into here. On the left side where the material is. And then after that. We click create. And sometimes this can take a minute. And so now we have some grass. So essentially we can build a scene. So when we are in this landscape mode, we automatically start with this brush up here called the sculpt. And if you hover your mouse over your landscape and hold down the left click, you can start sculpting the landscape up like this. Or if you hold down shift on the keyboard, you can recess the landscape into the ground. And if the landscape generation is too strong, like here, we can go on the left side where it says tool strength, and we can bring this down to 0.1, click enter, and then now the landscape movement is a lot more subtle. So go ahead and take 5-10 minutes, just play around with the landscape. You can make your brush size larger or smaller. And adjust the tool strength. So go ahead and take 5 to 10 minutes. Have fun.
Great. Pause and recording. Add some foliage.
All right. So now I'm gonna add some foliage. So to do that, I'm just gonna go back into the bridge. And I'm gonna go into plants, yeah.
Or even rock.
Yeah. So I'm gonna look up a 3D plant. I'm gonna use some, let's see, there's lots of options.
Right, guys, pause what you're using for a moment and pay attention to matrix.
So I'm gonna
It's
go,
another important, very important thing. The foliage one.
yeah, so I'm just gonna download an asset. But the important thing with plants in particular is that to make the scene look realistic, we want to use a lot of plants. And by doing so, it's very resource intensive. So when you find the plant you want on the bridge, we're gonna go and download either high quality or highest quality. But ideally, try to look for a plant where the quality says nanite. And that is the best quality to use. But in our case, we're just gonna stick with just high quality or medium quality.
Well, like it, high school is fine, you can turn it into NI inside of it.
All right, so we'll just stick with the highest quality, click download. And that'll do its thing.
A little longer. It doesn't have to be plants, but plants that, it could be a rock, but it should be like complete object. We're gonna use something similar to the particle system in Blender, but it's a lot better. So we're gonna make copies, thousands of copies, random size, random locations of a plant and on the surface using always.
Yep. So now that my plant has downloaded, I'm just gonna double click this blue button. And then I'm going to hop back into the level. And sometimes this can take a while.
So. For here not, so that's, so if you have,
We're gonna enable the nanite first.
right, so you know that, right?
And so in our mega scans, basically when in the level, what we're gonna do first is we're gonna go to our content drawer and navigate to wherever you downloaded the plants. And usually it's under mega scans and then go under 3D plants and open the folder. And what I like to do is select all of the plants and they will all have this turquoise like color. So just go ahead and select them all. And then we are going to right click. And then we're gonna go up to the top. And at the very top, it's going to say nanite. So we're gonna enable nanite on all of these 3D meshes. And this can take a little bit of time.
That's a very important step to remember. So if you remember Blender, if you add a lot of objects, it make your computer slow down, right? For Unreal Engine 5, there's something they developed called Nanite. So whenever you download an object, make sure sometimes it's automatically Nanite, but sometimes not. Turn the object into Nanite. That means if you add millions of objects into the scene, it doesn't still lose anything. It actually speeds things up. So that's something very special for Unreal Engine 5 and very important to remember. If you turn that Nanite off, your project is gonna crash sometimes. So it's very important practice. Every object you download, turn Nanite on.
All right, so now that we have enabled nanite, I'm just gonna double check that it's still on. And we see a plus or a check mark next to nanite, so we know that we are good. So the next step is to go from landscape mode and we are gonna go into the foliage mode. And then your plants should pop up here, but if this is empty, what we do is select all of these 3D objects here. And we're just gonna drag and drop them into this area here.
So we are now on the foliage mode. There's a selection mode, landscape mode, and foliage mode. Make sure you turn the foliage mode and add the plants. Yeah. Okay, we will make some copies of that. Yeah, so it's
creating copies of all the objects. Yeah. Right.
All right, so now that we are in the foliage mode, we have all of our plants inside of this folder. And make sure that there's a check mark next to all of these plants. So now, when we go into our level, we have this little bubble. And if we click on it once, we have all these plants that pop into place. And they look really detailed, they're a little small, but when I use the foliage and the plants, I like to make a small little spawn of plants, and the first thing I like to do is go up to the top where it says lit, click that, and go down to where it says nanite visualization. And then hover over where it says triangles. And this right here is the nanite. So when you go far away, it basically the way nanite works is that the closer you are to the object, the more detail you see. But the farther you are away from the object, like how far the camera is, the level of detail decreases. And if the camera only sees, for example, what's in the view of this table, then all of the other plants and 3D rocks that have nanites, they're kind of disabled, so that saves a lot of computing power. It helps with rendering. So now that we know that nanite works, we're gonna go back to where it says triangles, and we're gonna go back to lit. And I'm gonna press Control Z to delete this. So now I'm gonna add much more foliage. And so over here on the left, you can use the mouse wheel to scroll up, and where it says brush size, go ahead and make this larger. And another thing too is when you click on the plant here in the folder, there is options to increase the scale. So in my case, just for fun, I'm just gonna make these plants a lot larger. I'm gonna try and to make a forest.
The minimum and maximum that create a random size. You can select multiple objects at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Multiple objects and change all. Yes. That's huge. Usually what I do is just, point three to two. But his is like, it's creating huge, like literally, of course. Not to show density.
Yeah, the density is a little high. And if the density is ever a little too high, you can always click this and bring it down to a smaller value.
These are the things we want to do. And you can have, maybe, but not changing too much. Check. That's good. 4 minutes, good. So you don't have to worry about it. You can create millions of that, let's lose your birthday. Then I. Thank you.
So yeah, go ahead and add your foliage.
Have 5 to 10 minutes, and we're gonna, let's pause a little bit. Now we have time.
All right, so.
Pay attention.
So now that I've created a scene that I enjoy, the last thing that I like to do before I get into rendering is if you hold down Control and L at the same time, you can move the location of the sun by using the mouse. So I can get the exact shot that I want. So basically hold down Control and the L button. I like to do that with my left hand. And I use the right hand to move the mouse and kind of just get the angle of the sun how you want it. And then after you do that, the last thing I want to do to really make the scene come to life, I'm gonna go to add. And then after that, I'm gonna go into all classes. And I'm gonna click where it says exponential height fog. And I'm gonna click this. And then after that, in the settings here, in the fog, I like to increase the density of the fog a little bit. And just play around with these settings just a little bit.
Usually the fog is already there once you use the base 3D third person game.
Yeah,
So it is on the already when we're saying, just change the head.
and
Yeah, delete whatever in my, let's delete something.
yeah, lesson inside my. Let's just download whatever. Okay, like, whatever big one. Where is it? Yeah, the size. Okay. 8K raw texture, the tile. Whatever that is big, I don't need that. I think that should end well, just to get less. Yeah. And so, okay. And we have to save some space, but I heard it out. Okay, so right there, all right, perfect. Okay. I think the other one, right?
Okay.
Alrighty.
Hey guys, pay attention, last thing we gonna add
All right.
defense and camera.
Yep, so the last thing we're gonna add is I'm gonna go open my content drawer. And I like to go under the content. And here I like to right click using the mouse. And under cinematics, I'm gonna create a level sequence. So open your content drawer, go right click cinematics, then level sequence. And I'll just call this animation. And then now that we have the sequence, so now the next thing we need to add is the camera. So click the top left plus arrow here. And then we're gonna go into cinematics. And we're gonna do cine camera after. And now it places a camera right there. And so now that we have a camera in our scene, we are all ready for to start animating. So what we're gonna do first is open up our sequence by double clicking it. And for this short animation, I'm just gonna do about 160 frames. And when we are in this mode here, what we need to do is to track pressing this bottom left button, and we're gonna go after sequence, and we're gonna click our camera here. And now the camera is in the scene. And we can tell because it says the Cine Camera Actor in the bottom left. And it shows this camera button. So if you want to exit your camera and fly around, and if you want to get back into your camera, you can get into this mode. So now we are inside of the camera. And on the right side under the camera settings, I'm just gonna choose my lens to be about there. And I think this is good. And so the next step is for the camera, we are gonna go to down here where it says transform. And we're gonna open up this little triangle here. And this right here, when you click this creates a keyframe. So since I'm still in the camera, because it has this white camera logo glowing, what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna figure out how I want this scene to play. So I'm just gonna start my animation about here. And then once I find the first frame that I like, I go to transform and click this one here. Because when you click this transform key, it also keys the location, rotation, and scale of the camera. So always click this one. And then I'm just gonna go a couple of frames ahead. And I'm gonna move the camera a little bit. And then after that, I'm gonna click transform. And so now we have a animation. And so just go ahead and fly the camera and then press the transform key to key. And in this case, this camera clips the rock a little bit. So I'm gonna go back to this frame, move it a bit to the left, re-key it, and just double check. And that looks a lot better. So now I'm gonna bring this key over here and I'm gonna fly this way. And I'm gonna key it here, bring it back, and let it play. And with Unreal Engine, it's can be faster than Blender. In this case, when we just press the space bar, it's basically moving the camera and working in real time. And that's one of the benefits with Unreal Engine. So I'm gonna bring this a bit to the left. And I'm gonna fly out just a little bit. Key it here. Play it back. And then at the very end, I'm gonna go to my camera component and I'm gonna keyframe the focal length there. And then towards the end of my animation, I want this to be an extreme wide angle shot. So I'm gonna do like maybe 7 millimeters, looks about good. And now I have this shot. So I'm gonna play it back one time, and then after that, I'm gonna walk through on how to render this animation.
Right, and then. Also, S is the shortcut to create a keyframe.
The last step before we render,
Here. Yeah.
So the last step before we render is we gotta enable a plugin for Unreal Engine for it to render faster and better. So go to edit on the top left. And then we're gonna go under where it says plugins. We click that. And inside of this search window, we type in movie render queue. So all we gotta do is enable this and it's gonna prompt us to restart. So be sure to save your level and then restart. So basically edit plugins, movie render queue and make sure this is enabled with the check mark and then restart. And now,
That's a lot better, in terms of quality. I mean, you can.
all right, so after you guys is enabling the plugin and all of that stuff. So now what I'm gonna do is just gonna make some really quick fine-tune adjustments into my level before I render. All right, so now that we've enabled the plugin, so navigate back to your level sequence. It's basically, it has like the red icon next to it and double click that. And now the last step is in the sequencer, we have to click this white camera button. And that basically locks the camera to this sequence. And you should be able to see your animation in this long rectangle right here. And so now that I verified that this is inside of the camera cuts right here. So I'm gonna go to where it says render this movie. I'm gonna click that. And we're gonna go hop into the settings right here. So where it says settings, we click this. And I'm just gonna delete this stuff. And for the output, just save it somewhere that you can find.
You're USB, not somewhere, you're USB.
Yeah,
Or
save it,
right?
save it onto your USB drive. So for this level, I'm just gonna save it. Can I save it here?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm gonna save it to this location. I'm gonna do my 24 frames per second.
4K from now, it's, that's. For Unreal Engine 5, you know, you can literally get 4K.
Yeah,
That's, you know, you can, anything
Yeah.
there.
but the important thing, make sure you have it saved somewhere you can find, do a 4K. I'm gonna do 24 frames. And now, in the top left right here where it says settings, click this and we're gonna add anti-aliasing. I'm just gonna do 2 and 2 to keep it fast. Then go here and what I like to do for the high quality, I like to use the .exr 16-bit sequence. And then lastly, for rendering, just for today, we're gonna do the deferred rendering. But maybe in the future, we'll talk about other things like path tracing, ray tracing, but for today's demonstration, we're gonna use deferred rendering. We're gonna have 2 and 2 anti-aliasing to smooth out the edges. 16-bit. I'm using this the default compression, and for the output, save it to your USB drive, 4K, 24 frames. So once all of this stuff is good, we're gonna click accept, and then we're gonna click local render. And this might take a minute.
You can use jQuery, I use jQuery. Everyone can find linear foundations and you are familiar with them, whatever, right? But the important thing is like check the image sequence mark on. That's it. Great job. All right. Good job. It was very motivating to